Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedlie. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the oh-so-beautiful and wonderful neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and very delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have a really fascinating show for you today. First up, one of our favorite guests, Dr. Rajani LaRocca. She'll be here to celebrate her middle grade novel, Sona and the Golden Beast. And a little bit later on in the episode, Amie, Darnell, Specht, and Shannon Hitchcock will be here to celebrate Dancing in the Storm. We would like to invite you to embark on a transformative journey with The Invisible Backpack, A Life of Courage, written by William Hartwick. Are you burdened by past hurts, grief, or trauma? William's heartfelt narrative, born from his own struggles with depression and Tourette's syndrome, offers a pathway to lightening your load. Just like you, he knows the weight of an invisible backpack, growing heavier as life unfolds. But in his touching story, William invites you to courageously unpack it, making space for forgiveness, acceptance, tolerance, and love. Join William on a profound exploration of healing, blessings, and inner strength. Through William's vulnerability, he reveals the power of embracing your true self. Don't miss this inspirational tale of resilience and hope. Order your copy of The Invisible Backpack today and embark on a journey of self-discovery and courage. Get ready for a heartwarming adventure in Mommy's Day Off, the delightful picture book written by Jacqueline Christine. When young Louie's mom has to be away for a day, he's in for a wild ride with his dad. From waffle and ice cream breakfast to Wild West battles, they embark on an unforgettable journey filled with laughter and bonding. But as the day unfolds, Louie realizes there's a special magic that only his mom can bring to their home. Join Louie as he discovers the irreplaceable role his mom plays in his life, making Mommy's Day Off a touching tale of family, love, and the unique bond between a mother and her child. Get your copy today at Amazon or at JacquelineChristine.com. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. My friends, I am so excited. You are in for a treat. Returning to Reading with Your Kids, one of our favorite guests. She's back to celebrate Sona and the Golden Beast. Please welcome back to the show, Dr. Rajani LaRocca. Hey, Rajani, how are you?
I'm good, Jed. How are you?
I am wonderful. I always look forward to talking with you. We have such great conversations about your books, about your inspiration, and one of the best interviews that I've ever conducted was with you. I call the interview Starting with an Emotion, or It Starts with an Emotion, and you were talking about your writing process. And I have heard that people who've listened to that podcast were brought to tears.
Oh.
So.
Oh my goodness!
Yes,
wow.
Yes. So we have a big mountain in front of us. We have to do better.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, it's gonna be hard to beat that, but all right. Well, let's try.
Well, Sona and the Golden Beast. That's a great place to start. Tell us about this book, please.
Yeah. So Sona and the Golden Beast is my first otherworld fantasy. It is set in an Indian-inspired fantasy world, in which it's in the country of Devia, and the people who live there are called the Devans, and they're notable for their golden ears and their ability to cast magic through music. And about 200 plus years before the story starts, Devia is visited by people from another country called Malekia. And the Maleks initially come to trade, but then they end up taking over the entire governing of the country because they realize there's lots of, I don't know, gold, silver, spices, gems in this country. Things kind of have gotten worse since then, and the current king of Malekia is kind of awful. He's outlawed music so that the Devans can't cast their magic. And he has kind of imposed other horrible laws, like he's making Devans mine gems that they consider sacred in order to kind of take them for, his own country and sell them all over the world and become the richest place in the world. So the main character, Sona, is a Malek. She lives on a farm. Her family's been there for a few generations, but she loves this older woman, who she is like a grandmotherly figure to her, who helped raise her, and she's Devan. So Sona, very much kind of straddles these two groups of people and wants everybody to be treated fairly. And the other thing is that she hears music everywhere. So even though it's outlawed, she hears it in the land around her, and especially in the animals that keep showing up on her doorstep, and she rescues them. So the story starts when she finds an injured wolf pup with golden ears, and she thinks that this might be related to one of the 5 golden beasts of Devia, kind of legend. And then a Malekian hunter shows up at her door, and it's clear that he's killed the pup's mother, and he's looking for the pup. So Sona's like, I gotta get out of here. And then she ends up going on this quest across the entire country with this Devan boy, because that person who helped raise her has fallen really ill, and she wants to find the nectar of life kind of at the top of a mountain at the very northern tip of Devia to save her life. And then as she goes along, she learns more kind of secrets about the Malekian Empire and herself. And it turns out maybe she's not trying to save just one person. Maybe she's trying to save all the golden beasts and the entire country of Devia.
Wow.
Yeah. So, big story. Epic.
Yeah. And very much a departure from what you've written in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I've written contemporary fantasy. So my first 2 books, Midsummer's Mayhem, Much Ado About Baseball, were kind of set in our world, but with magical things kind of happening. And then of course I had, Red, White, and Whole and Mirror to Mirror. So those are 2, novels in verse that are, realistic fiction. And yeah, this is my first full blown fantasy. So yeah, different.
So I have just a bazillion questions to start with, but I think since I brought up our greatest interview, I have to start by asking you, what emotion did you start with when you created this world of fantasy?
Ooh. Okay. So I don't know. Okay. So I guess one of the emotions that I started with was indignation. Kind of like, a character who feels that the world is not just, right? And so wants to try and do what she can do to make things better. But the other, I guess the other emotion is, affection, for people and creatures who other people may not value.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are pretty good places to start.
Mm.
As you were talking, especially about affection, I think that is something I absolutely can relate to, because there's a lot going on in the world that make me upset. And there are a lot of countries and governments, sometimes my own, that are making decisions that make me upset. But when I meet people from those places, I always feel great affection for them. And it reminds me that I have to separate when I'm thinking about these different kind of issues. I have to separate the people, the individuals, from this machine that are making decisions that they're not human decisions, or because the machine is, even though it's being run by people, it's not human.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when I start writing characters, I think about, what a character wants, what they fear the most, and, if I can make it happen, I'll make it happen. But I also think about what they love. And I think the easiest way into a character, to get your reader to care about the character is to show the reader what the character cares about. And so that's kind of my, first window into a character that I try to show the reader.
Yeah. Now, I have to ask, because you are so accomplished, that people who've heard you in the past on the show know that you're a physician. And in addition to being a writer and a mom and a wife and all these other great things that you're doing, choosing to create this fantasy book, was this just a challenge? Like, I've never written a fantasy book, and let me see if I can do it.
It wasn't really that. I mean, I've always been a huge fantasy fan. Mm-hmm. So I grew up reading, the Chronicles of Narnia and The Lord of the Rings. And in fact, once the movies came out, my entire family, my children and husband and I, we watched those movies over and over again. It's just part of who we are. And, so I've always been a really big fantasy fan, but, I have to tell you that I grew up loving, British literature. So both of those fantasy series I mentioned are British, of course. And, so many things about British culture. I loved British history. I loved the Great British Baking Show. I love Shakespeare and Jane Austen, all these things. But as an Indian American, it is pretty, challenging to think about the British colonization of India, for hundreds of years and all the horrible things that happened during that time. And have to come to terms with both of these things, right? So I probably would not be the person I am had the British not been in India. My parents probably would not have grown up speaking English, and they probably would not have come to an English speaking country, as immigrants. But that doesn't make up for all the terrible things that happened because of British colonialism, not just in India, I mean, all over the world, right? So, I kind of had to deal with both of those things. And then, so I put that kind of colonial experience into this story. And sometimes it's easier to understand, what this means, when you put it into a fantasy world rather than our world, right? Because it doesn't come with a lot of, baggage, I'll say. Okay. So readers can read this and it's a made up world, but there are links to our own world. And then, so that was kind of one of the things that I wanted to explore in this story. And then the other aspect is that, depending on who is telling the story, you can get two really different versions of history. And so in this story, in between the parts that are just the straight narrative of what happens, there are these kind of interstitial pieces that are from the Malakian point of view. So letters from, governors back to the Isle of Malakia, or newspaper articles, or a history book, and from the Devan point of view. So songs and legends and sayings that often are about the same topic, but take two totally different, viewpoints. And so I wanted readers to think about, what version of history you get told and who told it and whether they had an agenda, and, think about how to get to the truth of what might be happening in a place. And that's not to make anybody feel bad. This is not about being defined by what happened in the past, but I really feel strongly that you have to understand the truth about what happened in the past in order to make decisions about the future.
Absolutely. One of the things that we've talked about here on the show is how important it is for parents to talk to their kids about the media that they are consuming, and to help, especially nowadays, because, when I was growing up almost 100 years ago, we had 3 channels and 2 newspapers in Boston. And so we had access to information, but it was a lot less. Now kids are exposed. They get more information coming into their pocket every day than I probably received in my lifetime as a kid. And just like when I was a kid, not all of that information should be relied on. And so it's important for our kids to understand that media is created by people with an agenda and by people who want you either to do something, to buy something, or feel a certain way. And that is such an important lesson for parents. And it has to be parents because schools aren't teaching it.
Right. Well, and it's something as simple as somebody else's social media feed,
Right.
like your friend's social media feed. Do you really think that their life is 100% awesome and they're having fun all the time? Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you just based it off what they post on Instagram, maybe you would, right? Mm-hmm. But, think about who's curating that and what they're choosing to have you see. And so I think that you can take it from an individual's behavior like that to everything else, right? Actual media. Yeah. And, it's so interesting. So I think I agree with you. This is something that, people, but especially young people, should be educated on and think about really early in their lives, kind of as a habit. Mm-hmm. Cause otherwise it's very easy to fall into a trap of just believing something that just isn't true.
Right. Absolutely. And, the other thing that you touched on is that this is set in a fantasy world, but there are so many things that you shared about this story that are reflective of what's going on in the world today and what has gone on in history. And, going back to that little device that's in our pockets, the minerals and the things that make it run are being mined by kids in a lot of countries, and they're not being treated well. And we need to help our kids be aware of that. So hopefully they can make some changes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the other things that I wanted people to think about with this story, is that, the Davins in this story believe in nonviolence. So they don't have an army. They don't use weapons. They don't, think that you should kill anybody, even if they're trying to kill you. And so they don't eat meat. They don't hurt animals, all that stuff. And it extends to everything. And the Malekians have no problem doing any of these things. And so, it's easy for the Malekian army or the, king or whatever to say these people are cowards. They are disorganized. They don't know what they're doing, and dismiss them, right? That they won't stand up even though they disagree. And, I wanted readers to think about, what if you refuse to hurt or kill somebody, even if they're doing you wrong? Like, is it possible to get what you want, to have justice be done without you having to perpetrate violence? And, if you look at the history of our own, world, there are obviously instances of people who did exactly that. So Mahatma Gandhi in India, nonviolence was one of the core principles that he stood by. And so, he and eventually his cause prevailed, mm-hmm. right? And Martin Luther King Jr. in our country was inspired in part by Gandhi, and he felt very firmly in nonviolence himself.
Yeah, it's, that is a tough question. That is a tough question. Would you have the courage not to respond with violence?
I know.
Yeah. Hey, I have to ask you, and I ask this of all the fantasy authors who come on. I had a hard time keeping up with everything you were telling me about these worlds and about these people. Do you have to, as you're writing this, do you have to create like a map or a Bible, if you would, that tells you about all these different powers so that you don't paint yourself into a corner and have to go back and change things?
Absolutely. I wrote an entire history of this imaginary world for myself.
Uh-huh.
Like from hundreds of years earlier, way before the book takes place, I wrote a history of all of it. 'Cause people refer, because when you're living in a place, you refer back to like stories and, myths and this and legends and history all the time. So, I just wanted them to refer back to these things kind of casually, and get the sense that it was an actual real history that, they were referring to. So yeah, I thought up an entire history of this entire place.
Awesome. I have so much respect for all the work that goes on backstage. As somebody who's been doing magic on stage for years and years and years, I like the view that I get backstage of everything that's happening on stage that the audience can't see. And this is similar. It's like you have all this work before you sit down and start actually writing the story that the people are going to be reading.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's but it's fun. It's also fun.
Now, you mentioned that the Devons love music and they have this magic, and that nation was kind of based on India. Are there any kind of Bollywood dances that go on in the story?
No Bollywood dances. The interesting thing about the magic in this story is it's like collective magic. It's magic that is formed through music, but mainly through the connection of the people who are performing it kind of together. It was really fun and interesting to think about. It's a different kind of magic than you might see in other stories.
Of all the different conversations that I think families can have as they're co-reading Sona and the Golden Beast together, that might be the most interesting conversation. Talking about that collective magic. What can we do for our world if we come together through music or philanthropy or service? What kind of magic can we create collectively?
Yeah, and I think the first step to that is saying we're a community, that we care about each other, that, the community is who we are and we are who the community is, that kind of thing. In fact, something to that effect is said at the beginning of casting a spell in this book. So it's about recognizing and embracing that connection with other people.
Yeah. You reminded me of something. I think stating something like that for our kids is important. One of the things people who listen to the show know that over the years we've hosted international kids in our home, and we just had an opportunity. I was at the International Children's Book Festival in Bologna, Italy, and while we were there, we were able to take the train up to Milano and visit with 3 of our Italian daughters who spent a year living with us. And every time, and my wife thought it was so dumb, but when we would pick the kids up at the airport and bring them to our home, the first thing I would say to them when they looked at our humble home was, hey, do you see the hotel sign above our house? And they would look puzzled and they say, no, of course not. And I say, good, because this is a home and you're now part of our family. And to me, it was just really important because I thought it was like, I want you to know coming in that you're not a renter. My intention is for you to be part of this family. And I think that, there's a lot that we assume our kids know. But I think if we make a statement, sort of make that mission statement that, hey, I want you to know that we're all part of this one beautiful human family. I think that's real important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, you know what else? You know what else is real important? We need to know where we can go to find out more about Sona and the Golden Beast and find out more about you.
Yeah, you can go to my website, www.rajanilarocca.com. So RajaniLarocca.com.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Sona and the Golden Beast. Our guest has been Rajani LaRocca. Hey, Dr. Rajani, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jed. This was wonderful.
Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is family fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Hey, are you ready to ignite a passion for reading in your students? Introducing bookandauthor.com, your gateway to literacy connections. With bookandauthor.com, connecting your school with talented authors of captivating kids' books has never been easier. Simply visit our user-friendly website and explore our extensive database of authors. Filter your search based on budget, genre, and availability. Discover the perfect match for your school and your students. But that's not all. With bookandauthor.com, you have the power to request a proposal. Let vetted authors come to you with their tailored ideas, ensuring an unforgettable literacy experience for your students. Don't wait any longer to inspire young minds through the magic of books. Visit bookandauthor.com today and open the door to a world of literacy connections. Bookandauthor.com, where literacy comes to life. We have two wonderful guests joining us from the wonderful state of North Carolina. Our guests are here today to celebrate their brand new middle grade novel. It's called Dancing in the Storm. First, welcome Shannon Hitchcock. Hey, Shannon, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
And also on the line is Amie Darnell Specht. Hey, Amie, how are you?
I'm doing great.
That's fantastic. Shannon, can you tell us a little bit about Dancing in the Storm, please?
I can. It's about a girl named Kate Lovejoy. She's 12 years old. She is from Louisiana. And Kate has been diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, FOP for short. Just call it FOP. And Amie actually has that genetic disorder herself.
Amie, can you tell us, and I'm not even going to try to say the name, but can you tell us what FOP is in a way that someone simple like me can understand?
Right. So the easiest way to explain FOP is we grow sheets of bone over our muscles, joints, and ligaments, basically forming us into a human statue. Any type of trauma, that sort of thing, shots, anything like that can affect us and cause a flare-up to happen, which causes the FOP bone to grow.
Now, believe it or not, Amie, back, now I'm almost 100 years old. When I was a kid, there was a friend of mine who lived in the neighborhood, and they had a cousin who lived in Nova Scotia who would come and visit very often, who I believe, I didn't know the name of the disorder, but I believe had this FOP, because I remember we had to be very careful because we were told if he gets a bruise, that bruise is going to turn into a bone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's very rare, but we do have people all over the world that have it. And I don't know everybody that has it, but that would be really cool if you knew somebody with it.
Tell me, what was it like? Now this is that person I mentioned was somebody that I would see for a couple of weeks every year or so. So I knew that we had to be very careful and very aware of him to care for him. But beyond that, I really don't have any idea what it would have been like growing up and living with FOP. Could you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I was diagnosed at 4.5. So, most of my life, I did have FOP. You are born with it, but it can show up at any time, throughout your life. I happened to be, my first flare-up was when I was 4, and I was diagnosed at 4.5. So throughout the years, I just kind of had to adapt to it. My parents were very easygoing. They let me run. They let me do adaptive sports, not sports, with a regular team usually. I rode a mini 4-wheeler around our neighborhood. I climbed trees. My parents were the type that were like, she's a kid, let her be a kid. Because eventually she's not going to be able to do these things anymore. And so as time progressed, that was true. And I would lose more mobility and lose my ability to walk, my ability to brush my hair, my ability I would need help in the bathroom, different things like that. To me, it was kind of normal though, because it progressed in such a way, that I kind of learned to deal with it. And my parents, like I said, were very the type that strive for independence too. So they tried to teach me how to take care of myself as well.
I have to tip my hat to your parents. I mean, listening to this, I think my instinct would be to have bubble wrapped you.
Yes.
So that nothing could have happened. I guess, the person we should ask is you. Your parents made the decision, and would you have made that same decision if you're able to turn back the hands of time?
I would have, yes.
Yeah.
I think it was a great decision. I think that a lot of times, kids, with disabilities are treated in a way where they are fragile and you should be scared of them. And I think to let them live, let them do things. We're all the same. We all have, things that we want to do. And, as we grow older, we all, can't do the things that we did when we were younger anyway. So let them be a kid, until they can't do those things.
Wow. Amie, I'm sitting here. I'm recovering from an accident that I had last year, and I'm also almost 100 years old, and there's a lot of things that I can't do anymore. And it has nothing to do with FOP. And Shannon is waving. Same with me.
It happens naturally, right? So
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, Shannon, tell us the process of how Dancing in the Storm came to be.
Okay. So it started, I had seen Amie, was a neighbor of her parents. I had seen Amie at the local clubhouse. I knew my neighbors had a daughter in a wheelchair, but I didn't know why. And not wanting to be nosy or rude, I never asked. But I was curious, and I think as human beings, we are curious. If we see somebody with a disability, we're curious as to what caused that. I was also friends with Amie's mom on Facebook, and on FOP Awareness Day, she put up something and she said, it's FOP Awareness Day. If you don't know what it is, look it up. And I took that as a challenge, and I looked it up and I read about it, and I thought, that's what Amie has. And as I read about it, I really became fascinated with it. I fell down the rabbit hole, and I spent all day, literally, I spent all day reading about it. I read everything I could get my hands on the web. I downloaded the FOP handbook from the IFOPA website. I read the handbook. I ordered a book from Amazon called Finding Magic Mountain. It's by a woman whose son has FOP, and she wrote a memoir about his growing up. I read that, and after all of that, I called Amie's mom, and I said, do you think Amie would be interested in writing a book with me? And she said, Amie loves to talk, so I'm sure she would be. So then she put me in touch with Amie, and Amie graciously said yes.
Wow. And Amie, what was your reaction when you found out that Shannon wanted to write a book with you?
At first, I was kind of like, why me, But then it was like, this would be excellent to get not just a book, but like to get information on FOP out and for people to know what it is. There's 900 cases worldwide. So, we want people to know what to look for and how to get other people that have FOP found.
Yeah. Tell me, Amie, if you would, the story that we're going to experience when we read Dancing in the Storm.
The story you're going to experience is a girl who gets diagnosed and has to learn to live with FOP as a preteen young girl, and how her world is changing, how her world is changing with her friends, with her families, the dynamics, what she will need help with, what she will need her friends there for, and her family, and just how to live with her new normal is what we want to call it, and go from there.
Shannon, what was the biggest challenge you faced writing this book?
I think it was a challenge we had together, which was COVID.
Definitely.
Yeah, so Amie and I had met at her home that she shares with her husband, and we had filled out character worksheets, and Amie had named the characters, and she had told me a lot of stories about growing up with FOP. But once COVID hit, we could not meet in person anymore because Amie was even at more risk than an average person because her lungs don't expand properly because of all the extra bone. And because of that, it had to become that we worked together via Facebook and, phone conversations and emails. And so really it became a virtual process. It would have been easier if we could have continued to meet in person.
Yeah, I'm sure. Amie, there's, like I said, people have known of, if indeed this person that was in my life has FOP, then it's been around for a long time. There's no treatment at all for it. Is there any way to kind of help you gain a little bit of mobility or to slow the progress?
When we do have a flare-up, so when whether it's trauma, even stress can cause the flare-up, or we have a cold or the flu or whatever causes that flare-up, we can take prednisone, which is a steroid, and that will sometimes help the inflammation and help that flare-up calm down, but it's not a guarantee. It's a wait and see if it helps. We do actually, last year, we had a treatment developed and approved by the FDA for treatment for FOP. It is to when you have a flare to help stop that bone growth. So, so you would take it and, it would hopefully stop any flare from growing any bone. Unfortunately, that does not help me. Mm-hmm. All of my joints are already frozen. So, but it will help people in the future. But we do have, I think, at least 10 clinical trials going on, or treatments being looked at right now, that they're continuing to see if those will work for FOP or not. And hopefully within the next few years, we'll know more about those, and more treatments will come about that will be helpful. So,
well, let's hope that there's some treatment, and we learn more, and we learn how to prevent folks from becoming less mobile. And I'm going to pray that we find something that can help you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shannon, as you know, through the magic of technology, I'm able to see you as you're listening to Amie's story. And I'm sure that this is a story that you've heard many times, but it is still obvious by your face that you have a great deal of love and care and empathy for Amie.
I do. And I did from the first time that I saw her. I don't know why, but I just did. I felt connected to her. And I was really too afraid to sort of reach out until her mom's Facebook page. But as I've gotten to know Amie, I'm inspired by her. I mean, she's not at all, she doesn't feel sorry for herself. And I say I can be much more grumpy than Amie. And I don't have, the physical challenges that she does, and I can still be grumpier. And she said to me, I've always been a relatively happy person. So she has found a way to be happy, despite tremendous physical challenges. And I think that's something that we could all learn from.
Absolutely. Amie, we talk a lot here on the podcast about the beauty of books, that they can be a mirror, a window, and a sliding glass door. And obviously, if there are kids out there with FOP, it would be wonderful for them to be able to see themselves portrayed so positively in a book like Dancing in the Storm. And I think that's wonderful. But I also think that this is an incredibly valuable book for a family that does not have anybody in their lives with FOP, to be able to give them a view, to see somebody who is, I was going to say struggling, but really living life to the fullest with this challenge. What would you want families to talk about as they're reading Dancing in the Storm?
I think I would want them to maybe discuss with each other if they know anyone that, like a friend or a family member that's going through a tough time, that maybe could use a friend, use somebody that could help them and help them get through it. They can also discuss if they've met somebody that maybe they shied away from. Go up and say hi to them. Go up and say, how you doing? Not everybody is going to want to talk about their disease, mm-hmm. or their problems or anything, but we could all use a friend too, and maybe eventually you'll figure, you'll learn about them and what's going on. And not even that they have a disease, even somebody that may just look sad, we're all going through something, whether it be, a kid needing glasses for the first time, that's a hard thing to deal with, especially as a preteen or as a teenager. So maybe you could befriend those people. And then if you have made a mistake, a mistake on not talking to somebody or maybe being mean to them. Kate has some friends that aren't very nice sometimes over some things that happen, and maybe how to fix that, what they can do to fix that in the future or do better in the future.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Having a conversation with your kids to help them understand that people who are different are still people and they can be great friends. Yeah. Amie, did you experience any time at school where somebody did what you're suggesting to kind of see you and see that you were left out, excluded, and go over and offer friendship?
I didn't, but my brother did. My brother does not have FOP. He is very normal. And I say normal in the sense of no FOP.
Right.
But he was more of an introvert. And we moved around a lot from my dad's job. And he had a lot of hard times making friends and you know, people weren't nice to his friends, and he would stand up for them and be like, hey, you know, we're all here, you know, and I think that that's important, you know, that that we stick up for each other.
I like that.
Yeah.
Brother sounds like a great guy.
He is.
Yeah. Shannon, what's the reaction been so far to folks who've been reading Dancing in the Storm?
Well, the reaction that has meant the most to me was from Dr. Fred Kaplan, and he is the doctor that diagnosed Amie, and he's the world's preeminent specialist on FOP. And he wrote a letter to Amie's parents after he read the book, and it was wonderful. He loved the book, and he was going to buy a copy for all of his clinical staff. So that meant a lot to me. As far as a bigger reaction, it was named a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection.
Wow.
And so Amie and I are very excited about that happening.
Congratulations. Look at that, Amie, right out of the box, your first book.
Thanks.
Yeah. Wow. Look at that. I'm curious. Any talk about a Dancing in the Storm sequel? Maybe Dancing in the Sunshine or Dancing in the Snow?
Well, I will say this: publishing is a business, and so it will just depend on how well this book does.
Right.
You know, if it does well enough that they would request a sequel, then you know, of course, we would put our heads together and get to work. We'll just have to see how well the book does. I'll tell you one other thing that I want you to know is that in Africa and in India, it's estimated that there are a lot of people with this disease, but they are not diagnosed. And so one of our goals is to spread awareness of this. Because if they can find these kids before they become immobile, maybe they could be enrolled in one of the clinical trials. Maybe there could be help for them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's really one thing we want to do.
Yeah. Now, Amie, is there a way, a genetic test that people can take that will let people know that, oh, this is an issue that this person is going to have to deal with?
Yes. So there are genetic tests that one can take. But the main thing that we say to look for, you can notice it in embryo. That's how awesome this is the toes. Our big toe is usually smaller and kind of not deformed, I wouldn't say. I don't want to really say that word, but it looks different. And our big toes look different and usually have a bump on the side, kind of like a
bunion.
Yeah, like a bunion. Thank you, Shannon. And you can see this in embryo. And if you know that, you can get the genetic test then to check and see if your baby will have FOP. It can also be seen once they're born. You can get them tested the day they're born. Whatever the parents to be wish to do. But those toes, that's the main thing to look for.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating. Well, typically this is where I ask where we can find out more about the book, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to ask Shannon. But Amie, where can people go to find out more about FOP?
So the best place to find more about FOP is the IFOPA.org website. That has all of our information. It has contacts information. It has, like Shannon said, the guidebook to learn about FOP. You can connect with people on there. It's a great resource. So IFOPA.org.
Okay.
And then we also have social media sites as well.
IFOPA.org. All right. That is very important for folks to check out. And Shannon, where can we go to find out more about Dancing in the Storm?
Anywhere books are sold, but the Penguin Random House website would be probably the best place.
Yeah, and we are big supporters of indie and small business, small bookstores. So go in to your local bookstore and ask if they can order you Dancing in the Storm. Bring more awareness of this story and of this syndrome to your local community, and also enjoy a fantastic story with your kids. We've had a great time speaking to the authors of Dancing in the Storm, Amie, Darnell, Specht, and Shannon Hitchcock. My friends, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Please be sure to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram and TikTok, and at Jedlie Magic on Twitter. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. Now you might be asking yourself, what can I find on your YouTube channel? Well, you can listen to every episode of the show on our YouTube channel. Some people do that. That's what I'm told. Lots of folks listen to podcasts on YouTube, and you certainly can listen to Reading with Your Kids on YouTube. You can also find our Drawing with Your Kids videos and our STEM is Family Fun videos on that channel. We'd love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog, download our free online magazine, visit our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame, and use the contact button up at the top of the page to send us a message. Let us know what we're doing well. Let us know what we could be doing better. And most of all, let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the show. And if you're an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button up at the top of the page. That way you can find out how you can be a guest here on Reading with Your Kids. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlit fans about your great kids' books. You can also learn about our effective and affordable promotional services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Dr. Rajani LaRocca, Amie, Darnell, Specht, and Shannon Hitchcock. Also want to thank our great sponsors, and I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Nick Warner, Kyoko Ito, Kayla Newland, Kristen Barrett, Sydney Swan, Anna Rose. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of her support. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by Reading with Your Kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.